Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Arkham Files. My name's Dr. Henderson.
My name's Dr. Boose.
And today we have yet another one of Batman's notorious rogues. Today we're going to talk about the vixen of vines herself, Poison Ivy. Do you like Poison Ivy?
Yeah, I mean, I like her. I mean, she ain't my favorite by no means, but I like her.
I can agree with that. She's not one of my favorites. I don't know if she's even in my top 10.
Yeah, she's top 20 somewhere, but I mean, I always liked her, though. I never get... You know what I'm saying? I'm always glad when she shows up and something.
Yeah. But let's get into Poison Ivy. So Poison Ivy, or Dr. Pamela Lillian Isley, is a character appearing in comic books published by DC Comics, commonly in Batman stories. Poison Ivy was created by Robert Kanigher and Sheldon Moldoff and made her debut at Batman number 181 in June of 1966. Same year that the show came out is when she debuted in the comics.
Yeah.
Partly inspired by the titular character in Nathaniel Hawthorne's short story Rappaccini's Daughter, she's a misanthropic, pretty sure I used this word, botanist and biochemist who possesses a poisonous touch, enhanced physical abilities, and a supernatural control over plant life, powers which she uses for the purpose of eco-terrorism. The character's appearance is considered iconic. She is typically drawn barefoot in a one-piece costume adorned with leaves and vines, with occasional variations to her skin tone. She uses plant toxins and mind-controlling pheromones for her criminal activities, which are usually aimed at protecting endangered species and the natural environment from the careless actions of humans. She was originally characterized as a supervillain, but as of the New 52 in DC Rebirth, she has periodically been depicted as an anti-heroine as well. So I don't necessarily think of Poison Ivy as evil.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I see her in the same way as I see Mr. Freeze, of like more of someone trying to do. I don't know. Most of the time, from stuff I've seen, it's usually like she wants something that's good for her, and she'll go like through any needs to do it. It's stuff that could be good for the people. Like I watched this one thing where she was like something with like a bunch of plants were dying or whatever. She was like obsessed with like trying to fix it. And she was going to go through anything just to make sure it just stayed perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
All right, let's continue on. Ivy is empowered by the interplanetary force known as the Green. Now, if you've read any Swamp Thing comics, this all will be familiar. Swamp Thing is the avatar of the Green, right? And there's also the Red, and there's just a bunch of different. The Red, I think, is supposed to be like humans and animals and stuff like that.
Uh-huh. And
the Green is like plants and all that. And if you read into Swamp Thing comics, and you'll get the gist of all that. But that's how she connects. In Neil Gaiman's short story Pavane, she identifies herself as nature's daughter and the rightful ruler of the world. She's one of Batman's most enduring enemies, belonging to the collective of adversaries who make up Batman's rogues gallery. She's been featured in many media adaptations related to Batman. Uma Thurman portrayed the character in Batman and Robin. Claire Foley, Maggie Geha, and Peyton List played her in Gotham. That's right, 3 people played her in Gotham. One was a little girl, one was a slightly older teenager, and then one was an adult. While Bridget Regan portrayed her in the 3rd season of the Arrowverse series Batwoman. She was voiced by Diane Pershing in the DC animated universe, Piera Coppola on the Batman animated series, Tasia Valenza for the Batman Arkham video game series, and Ricky Lindholm in the Lego Batman movie, and Lake Bell and Harley Quinn.
Okay.
All right, let's get some publication history here. Poison Ivy was created by Robert Kanigher and Sheldon Moldoff, and the first character appearance was in Batman number 181 in June of 1966. Moldoff originally modeled her after Betty Page, giving her the same haircut and look. The character was partly inspired by the short story Rappaccini's Daughter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, about a maiden who tends a garden of poisonous plants. She becomes resistant to the poisons, but is rendered poisonous to others. Poison Ivy's origin is depicted in Neil Gaiman's short story Pavane, during which she declares herself to be nature's daughter and the world's rightful ruler. It's later revealed that she was, in fact, gifted by the environmental force known as the Green. Ivy is considered extremely beautiful within the DC universe and is often presented as a temptress. She is typically depicted barefoot with long flowing hair, plant vines extending over her limbs, and a green one-piece suit adorned with leaves. with occasional variations to her skin tone. Writer J.T. Krull, who helped further define Poison Ivy's personality, summed up her character with the following quote. He said, "The thing I love most about Poison Ivy is her walking that line between bastion of Mother Nature and psycho-eco-terrorist. She sees herself as the hand of Mother Nature. If Mother Nature were God, then Ivy would be her Jesus. She defends the defenseless nature of the world and truly believes in her cause. Maiming, mauling, and mutilating are extreme measures, but it's nothing compared to what irredeemable cruelties humanity's done to the world of nature. Ivy always sees the greater good as she punishes those who deserve it." All right. So now let's get into the fictional character's biography here with pre-crisis. So Dr. Lillian Rose, PhD, is a promising botanist who is persuaded by Marc Legrand into assisting him with the theft of an Egyptian artifact containing ancient herbs. Fearing she would implicate him in the theft, he attempts to poison her with the herbs, which are deadly and untraceable. She survives this murder attempt and discovers she's acquired an immunity to all natural toxins and diseases. And that was her pre-crisis backstory.
Okay. Hey, never mind. I was going to make a comment, but never mind.
All right. So I don't know if, that's her classic backstory, but that's not the one I'm used to.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% up to date on what her backstory is anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Neither am I.
But the post-crisis is probably the one I'm more adapt to, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Following the events of the DC maxi-series comic Crisis on Infinite Earths, which massively retconned DC Universe history and continuity, Poison Ivy's origins were revised in Secret Origins number 36, 1988, written by Neil Gaiman. Poison Ivy's real name is Dr. Pamela Lillian Isley, PhD, a Gotham City botanist. She grows up wealthy with emotionally distant parents and later studies advanced botanical biochemistry at a university with Alec Holland under Dr. Jason Woodrue. Now, Alec Holland is Swamp Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Isley, a shy girl, is easily seduced by a professor. Woodrue injects Isley with poisons and toxins as an experiment, causing her transformation. She nearly dies twice as a result of these poisonings, driving her insane. Later, Woodrue flees from the authorities, leaving Isley in the hospital for 6 months. Enraged at the betrayal, she suffers from violent mood swings, being sweet one moment, evil the next. When her boyfriend has a car accident after mysteriously suffering from a massive fungal overgrowth, Isley drops out of school and leaves Seattle, eventually settling in Gotham City.
Huh.
I like that one better.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. She begins her criminal career by threatening to release her suffocating spores into the air unless the city meets her demands. Batman, who appears in Gotham that very same year, thwarts her scheme, and she's incarcerated in Arkham Asylum. From this point on, she has a kind of obsession with Batman, him being the only person she cannot control due to his strong will and focus. Over the years, she develops plant-like superpowers, the most noticeable being a lethal toxin in her lips. She's literally able to kill with a kiss. And that is one power I'm used to her having, her character.
Yeah.
Let's see here. In subsequent issues, she states that she only started the life of crime to attain sufficient funds to find a location to be alone with her plants, undisturbed by humanity. A few years later, she attempts to leave Gotham forever, escaping Arkham to settle on a desert island in the Caribbean. She transforms the barren wasteland into a second Eden and is, for the first time in her life, happy. It is soon firebombed, however, when an American-owned corporation tests their weapons system out on what they think is an abandoned island. Ivy returns to Gotham with a vengeance, punishing those responsible. After being willingly apprehended by Batman, she resolves that she can never leave Gotham, at least not until the world was safe for plants. From then on, she dedicates herself to the impossible mission of purifying Gotham, which I believe is almost impossible.
Yeah.
At one point, Batman travels to Seattle to ascertain information on Pamela Isley's life before she became Poison Ivy. Here, Batman states that both of Pamela's parents are dead. Why and when they died has been left undetermined. While in Arkham, Poison Ivy receives a message through flowers that someone is to help her escape. That night, two women, Holly and Eva, successfully break Ivy out and bring her back to their employer. She's less than happy to discover that it is the Floronic Man, formerly known as Dr. Jason Woodrue, her former college professor, that conducted the experiments on her. The only human portion of him remaining is his head, while the rest of his body is plant-based. Okay. After striking a deal with him in the tunnels of Gotham, Ivy receives a trunk full of money in return for samples of her DNA. Woodrue intends to combine their DNA to create a child, all while flooding the streets of Gotham with high-grade marijuana. The purpose of this is to create a world economy run on hemp and to have their offspring control it. Batman intervenes, but is overcome by Woodrew's henchmen, Holly and Eva. However, Ivy turns on Floronic Man and lets Batman go to fight the intoxicated maniac. In the end, Batman decapitates the Floronic Man, and Ivy escapes with her money. I'm pretty sure Batman did not kill the guy. I hope.
I don't think he would.
Well, he said decapitated him.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, that must have been by accident.
Well, he had a plant body and a human head, so maybe it didn't kill him. Not sure. All right.
Okay.
At times, Ivy demonstrates positive and maternal traits. When Gotham City is destroyed in an earthquake and declared no man's land, she holds dominion over Robinson Park and turns it into a tropical paradise rather than fight over territory like most of Batman's enemies. 16 children who are orphaned during the quake come to live with her as she sympathizes with them, having suffered a traumatic childhood herself. She cares for them like sons and daughters, despite her usual misanthropy. That winter, Clayface, Basile Carlo, pays Ivy a visit, hoping to form a bargain with her. This would entail her growing fruits and vegetables, having the orphans harvest them, and him selling the produce to the highest bidder. She wants nothing to do with the plan, and she attempts to kill him with a kiss. Clayface overpowers her, however, and imprisons Ivy and the orphans for 6 months in a chamber under the park's lake. He feeds her salt and keeps her from the sun to weaken her. Eventually, Batman comes and discovers the imprisoned orphans and Ivy. The two agree to work together to take Carlo down. Batman battles Clayface and instructs Robin to blow up the lake bed above, allowing the rushing water to break apart the mud, effectively freeing Ivy. She fights Carlo, ensnaring him in the branches of a tree and fatally kissing him. She then proceeds to sink him down into the ground, where he becomes a fertilizer for Ivy's plants. Batman, originally intending to take the orphans away from Ivy, recognizes that staying with her is what is best for them, and they remain in her care until the city is restored. Also, as part of a bargain to keep her freedom, Batman arranges it so that Ivy provides fresh produce to the starving hordes of earthquake survivors. Soon after, Ivy finds Harley Quinn, who had almost been murdered by the Joker, among the debris of the earthquake and nurses her back to health. The two have been best friends and partners in crime ever since.
Sure.
I've heard, now I know No Man's Land is like one of your classic Batman comics, but I have actually never read it. I really do want to, but I just never have gotten around to it.
Yeah, same here. I've been wanting to read that as well.
Yeah. All right, but let's continue on. After Gotham City is reopened to the public, the city council wants to evict her from the park and send her back to Arkham, as they're uncomfortable with the thought of a psychotic eco-terrorist controlling the equivalent of 30 odd square blocks. They also mistakenly believe that the orphans in Ivy's care are hostages. The Gotham City Police Department threatened to spray the park with RC-60, a powerful herbicide that most certainly would have killed every living plant in the park, including Ivy, and more than likely to do harm to the children. Ivy refuses to leave the park to the city and let them destroy the paradise she created, so she chooses martyrdom. It's only after Rose, one of the orphans, is accidentally poisoned by Ivy that the hardened eco-terrorist surrenders herself to the authorities in order to save the girl's life. Batman says that, as much as she would hate to admit it, Ivy is still more human than plant. Later on, she and other Gotham characters are manipulated by the Riddler and Hush. Her task is to hypnotize both Superman and Catwoman, using Catwoman to steal ransom from Killer Croc after the original plan is interrupted by Batman, while Superman serves as a bodyguard when she hides in Metropolis. However, she abandons Catwoman to be killed by Killer Croc, and Batman is able to keep Superman busy in a fight, aided by the kryptonite ring he was given long ago, long enough for the Man of Steel to break out of the spell. Soon afterwards, the Riddler, who is being chased and attacked by Hush, approaches Ivy and seeks her protection. Ivy, who is angered by the manipulation, battles the Riddler physically and psychologically. She comes to physically dominate her opponent, humiliating Riddler and temporarily breaking his spirit. Now, we talked about this in the Riddler episode, which you guys can go listen to, that he just doesn't have the best of luck. And this is yet another reason why.
Oh.
All right. Here we go. Poison Ivy comes to believe that her powers are killing the children she had looked after, so she seeks Bruce Wayne's help to reverse her powers and make her a normal human being once more. Soon after, she is convinced by Hush to take another serum to restore her powers and apparently dies in the process. However, in Batman Gotham Knights, when her grave is visited shortly thereafter, it is covered with ivy, creating the impression her death would be short-lived. All right. Shortly after, Poison Ivy appears briefly in Robinson Park, killing 2 corrupt cops who killed one of her orphans, although whether this takes place before or after the aforementioned storyline is unknown. 1 year later, in the comic story, Ivy is alive and active. Her control over Flora has increased, referred to as being a par with Swamp Thing or Floronic Man. She also appears to have resumed her crusade against the corporate enemies of the environment with a new fanaticism, regarding Batman no longer as a main opponent but as a hindrance. After arriving back from a long year absence, Batman discovers that Ivy has been feeding people, including tiresome lovers, incompetent henchmen, and those who returned her smile, to a giant plant, which would digest the victim slowly and painfully. She refers to these murders as a guilty pleasure in an unprecedented event. Her victims' souls merge with the plant, creating a botanical monster called Harvest, who seeks revenge upon Poison Ivy. With the intervention of Batman, however, she is saved. Poison Ivy is left in critical condition, and the whereabouts of Harvest are unknown. And that was her post-crisis stories.
Okay.
All right. There is a whole section here about other storylines, but just to keep this kind of condensed, we're going to move right on to New 52.
Cool.
All right. In 2011, the New 52 rebooted the DC universe. Poison Ivy is recruited into the covert ops group known as the Birds of Prey. Though she's specifically handpicked by the team's leader, Black Canary, the other members of the group protest Ivy's inclusion, citing her violent past and connections to various murders. These suspicions are proven correct when Ivy poisons the team and forces them to attack corrupt companies she wants to destroy, until Katana apparently kills her. Ivy survives the injuries and returns to Gotham, breaking out Clayface in order to manipulate him into becoming her husband. Batman intervenes to help her, mainly because the locations she attacked were the Penguin's properties. Poison Ivy ends up captured by Penguin's men. She's buried alive by them, but survives long enough to be rescued by Penguin's right-hand man, Emperor Penguin, who's taken over his boss's business after the Joker's return. He proposes an alliance with her. However, Carlo, whom Batman had set free from Ivy's control, tracks down and attacks Poison Ivy. Emperor Penguin later calls in a favor from Poison Ivy. This led to Emperor Penguin empowering himself with a chemical that is made of one of the Poison Ivy's plant concoctions, the Man-Bat serum and the Venom drug. Now, that whole story is from the New 52 Detective Comics, which I've read and is really good. So I'd recommend reading that. All right.
Cool.
The character's origin in this new DC universe was presented in a special issue of Detective Comics number 23.1 during the Villains Month event in September 2013. Pamela Isley was born with a skin condition that prevented her from leaving her home. She spent most of her limited time outside in her family's garden. Her abusive father murdered her mother and buried her in the garden. While in college, Pamela sold pheromone pills to the other students to study its effects until she was caught by police. She used a powerful version of the pills to control the dean's mind so he would drop the charges and let her graduate with honors. While visiting her father in prison, she kissed him, and a poison that was secreted from her lips killed him. Later, she landed an internship in Wayne Enterprises' biochemistry division, developing pharmaceutical and cosmetic applications. She was fired after suggesting to Bruce Wayne that the company developed chemicals that could brainwash people. She was escorted out by security. She accidentally slipped the chemical she was working with on herself, giving her powers to control plant life and immunity to all poisons and viruses. I do not like that backstory.
We're like pretty gruesome. They buried her. They are. I'm like, Lord.
Yeah, that took a huge turn from just
I know, right?
being experimented on. All right, here we go. Cycle of Life and Death. In January 2016, DC Comics debuted Ivy's first solo comic book series, Poison Ivy: Cycle of Life and Death. As Dr. Pamela Isley, PhD, she joins the plant sciences department at Gotham Botanical Gardens, but things quickly get complicated when Luisa Cruz, Ivy's friend and mentor, is murdered via poisoning. Ivy investigates the murder whilst working on her genetic engineering research that culminates in the creation of two plant-human hybrid children known as Rose and Hazel. With the help of Selena Kyle and fellow researcher Darshan, Poison Ivy finds that the Gotham Botanical Gardens are performing experiments using Ivy's research, which result in the creation of another plant-human hybrid child known as Thorn. Ivy destroys the laboratory and rescues the child. Ivy raises Rose, Hazel, and Thorn, who grow to adult size at an exponential rate, becoming young women within 35 weeks. When the girls sneak out to see Gotham City at night for the first time, they cause an incident at a strip club that gets the police involved, and Ivy has to help them escape. Returning to the apartment, Ivy locks Rose, Hazel, and Thorn away so they will not leave again. Ivy finds Dr. Eric Grimley, chair of the Gotham Botanical Gardens Research Department, waiting for her. Grimley had been conducting experiments with Ivy's research in order to cure his own cancer. He had then murdered Louisa because she was suspicious of the experiments he was performing. Now, with this cancer returning, he intends to harvest Rose, Thorn, and Hazel for spores to be used as another cure. He attacks Ivy and transforms into a giant plant-like monster. Darshan arrives and releases the girls. Ivy, Rose, Hazel, Thorn, and Darshan, along with Swamp Thing, who seeks to kill Grimley for trying to break the cycle of life and death, fight and defeat Grimley, with Thorn hacking him up with a chainsaw. Darshan later helps Rose, Thorne, and Hazel leave Ivy, reasoning that they were getting so restless they would eventually go with or without his help. They set off away from Gotham to places unknown, saying they plan to live out their lives regardless of how short they may be. Okay. All right, and there are a lot more different stories here. She has a lot of spinoffs and a lot of cameo appearances in different books. But we're going to skip over that. And she's also appeared many times in different Harley Quinn comics. As you know, her and Harley are very, very good friends.
Yes.
But she's appeared also in the Injustice comics, and she's had a lot of romantic relationships, according to this file. Obviously with Batman a few times. She's with Harley Quinn as well. Yeah. I think that's pretty much.
She's been with Harvey Dent as well. I know she is in the Telltale series.
Well, Catwoman is with Harvey in the Telltale series.
Oh, no. What am I thinking of then?
I have no idea.
Huh. I swear I saw an adaptation where Poison Ivy was with Harvey Dent for a bit. But you are right about that. I forgot it was.
Yes. And I only know this because I'm playing through it right now. You guys can go check that out on the YouTube channel.
Yes.
All right.
It's pretty good. Mm-hmm. But I should start streaming some Marvel's Adventures.
No one's gonna watch it.
No one will watch it.
All right. But that is everything about her biography, and now we'll get into the 10 worst things she's ever done, and then we'll end it out. All right. Here we go. So the first thing was controlling Superman, which we did talk about. She controlled him so she could have peace by herself. Well, she was trying to come up with some kind of new serum, I think it was. And so she kind of enlisted Superman as a bodyguard. All right. She threatened to destroy Gotham, which I'm pretty sure everyone has done. But that's definitely, that should be lower on the list than it is, because threatening to destroy Gotham is like what everyone has done. I think Batman's even said that before.
Yeah.
All right. Formed a supervillain group with Harley Quinn and Catwoman. As we know, that is the Gotham City Sirens. She killed Clayface, which we did talk about. She turned him into a fertilizer for her plants. All right, let's see. She left Catwoman to die. Read about this. Ivy may have fought alongside Catwoman throughout her comic book history, but she's also faced off against the famed cat burglar. After she's manipulated by the Riddler and Hush, Ivy uses her hypnosis on Catwoman and Superman, forcing Selina to steal ransom money from Killer Croc. The plan fails when Batman intervenes and Ivy abandons Catwoman with Croc to die. This demonstrates the extremes that Ivy frequently flits between. She shows compassion by adopting orphan children, but she's also incredibly ruthless and looks out for herself first. She humiliated the Riddler. We talked about that. She killed police officers, which I'm pretty sure every other villain has done as well.
Yeah.
She tried to kill Damian Wayne.
I wish she did, honestly.
It says, during Battle for the Cowl, Poison Ivy teams up with Killer Croc and various other supervillains in Gotham after being persuaded by the new Black Mask. The group plot to take over the city, and one of their plans include Ivy and Croc attempting to kill Damian Wayne. Poison Ivy and Killer Croc fail, though they wreak plenty of chaos throughout the series, including destroying one of Penguin's warehouses. Damian soon reunites with Nightwing and the other former Robins. All right, she nearly killed the Pied Piper and the Trickster.
Oh.
Let's see how this happened. Ivy's dislike of humanity causes her to withdraw from society and isolate herself. She does not take kindly to people disrupting this isolation, as she demonstrates in Countdown number 37. After the Pied Piper and the Trickster hide out in one of her greenhouses, Ivy captures the pair and ties them up with vines, intending to kill them. Ivy loathes humans intruding upon her plant-filled sanctuary, and Pied Piper and Trickster almost bear the brunt of her wrath for this. It is later revealed that Ivy has joined the Injustice League Unlimited, adding another team-up to her repertoire. And the worst thing she did, she fed people to plants, which we talked about. She called it a guilty pleasure, and they were digested slowly and painfully, and then all their souls attached to the plant and turned into a giant monster called Harvest. Yeah, and that is the case file on one Poison Ivy.
Pretty I mean, still doesn't rank her up in my villains list, but I still, I have always liked the character. I know my brother, he is a big fan of her.
Mm-hmm.
I think if done right, she could possibly be in like my top 5 if they do something like really crazy. But I just can't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still like Poison Ivy a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's everything we're gonna have to talk about this week. Next episode of the Arkham Files, we're gonna be talking about one of the more popular Batman villains, the Penguin.
Yes.
I'm excited for that one. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So thank you all so much for joining us this week. I've been Dr. Henderson.
My name's Dr. Boose.
And we'll talk to you next time. Bye, guys.
See ya.